Between 2013 and 2015, banks across the world began losing money. New York, Moscow, Berlin, Beijing. Not in robberies, not in armed takeovers, but in silence. ATMs dispensed cash, with no cards inserted. Accounts transferred millions, with proper authorization codes. Security systems logged nothing unusual. No alarms, no breach alerts, no broken vaults. Because the people stealing the money were already inside the system. For months. Watching, learning, waiting. By the time cybersecurity investigators pieced it together, estimates suggested between $300 million and $1 billion had vanished across more than 100 financial institutions. Possibly more. No gunfire, no hostages, no getaway cars. Just one email. This is the story of the invisible bank robbery. Welcome to the Heist Vault. Behind every vault, there's a story. Some end in prison, some end in graves, and some simply disappear. The campaign began around 2013. Employees at banks and financial institutions received emails. Professional, targeted, specific to their roles. Attached was a document, a resume, a financial report, an internal-looking memo. When opened, it prompted the user to enable content. One click. That click activated malicious macros embedded inside the Microsoft Office document. The malware installed quietly on Microsoft Windows systems. This was not random spam. It was spear phishing. Intentional. Targeted. And it worked. Security researchers later described this campaign as an APT-style attack. APT stands for Advanced Persistent Threat. Yeah, it is exactly what it is called. Advanced, technically sophisticated. Persistent, designed to stay inside for a long time. Threat, organized and intentional. This wasn't random hacking. It was a complete system infiltration. Once inside the network, the attackers didn't steal anything immediately. They studied. They mapped internal systems. They learned who approves large transfers, how ATM networks are managed remotely, how internal accounting systems function, how money moves between branches. In some cases, investigators reported the attackers had access to internal monitoring systems. They could see daily operations. They weren't rushing. They were rehearsing. This is where this becomes something else entirely. They didn't hack the bank. They became the bank. For months, sometimes longer, the attackers observed internal workflows before moving money. They mirrored legitimate behavior. They issued commands from authorized environments. They triggered transactions that looked routine. Security systems are designed to detect outsiders. Carbanak operated as an insider. That difference is everything. After months of observation, the theft phase began. There were several methods. When the first large transfer happened, it didn't look unusual. It followed the correct approval chain. It used valid credentials. It moved through proper channels. The system approved it. Because the system believed it was legitimate. That's the moment the vault stopped being physical. It became psychological. Security is built to detect force. But Carbanak didn't use force. It used familiarity. The attackers changed numbers inside bank databases. They increased balances artificially. Then transferred the excess funds to accounts they controlled. To the original customer, nothing appeared wrong. Their balance looked intact. But extra money had been quietly created and moved. They initiated wire transfers using legitimate internal systems. Because they had learned who approved transactions and how they were formatted, the transfers looked authentic. By the time discrepancies were noticed, the money had already moved through multiple accounts. Then came something bolder. An ATM in one region was scheduled to dispense cash at a specific time. No card. No customer interaction. Just a remote instruction. At the exact minute, the machine began releasing bills. A man standing nearby calmly collected the money and walked away. The attackers gained access to ATM management systems. They scheduled specific times for certain machines to dispense cash. Once they confirmed their methods worked, they scaled. More transfers, more manipulated balances, more scheduled ATM releases. Local money mules, individuals recruited to collect funds, would stand nearby. At the exact scheduled time, the ATM would begin releasing cash. No card inserted, no damage, just money coming out. One bank reportedly lost $7.3 million this way. Another institution lost around $10 million through manipulated online systems. To anyone watching, it looked routine, but it was remote control theft. Each transaction looked small enough to blend in, but over time, the total grew. Tens of millions, hundreds of millions. Some estimates say close to $1 billion. Not taken in one dramatic moment, but drained, like water from a sealed tank, drop by drop. In 2014, cybersecurity researchers began uncovering patterns across multiple financial institutions. In 2015, Russian cybersecurity firm Kaspersky Lab publicly disclosed what they called the Carbanak campaign. Some researchers had previously referred to similar activity as Anianak. Estimates of total losses ranged widely. They estimated losses between $300 million and $1 billion. The group allegedly targeted institutions across Russia, Ukraine, Germany, China, the United States, and dozens of others. More than 40 countries were cited, but not everyone agreed on the exact scale. Some cybersecurity firms argued most confirmed bank compromises were concentrated in Russia and Ukraine. U.S. authorities stated at the time that they had not received confirmed reports of American banks being directly affected. The truth? Multiple banks were compromised. Large sums were stolen. The exact total remains debated. And that uncertainty keeps the story alive. The group behind the attacks became associated with a cybercriminal organization tracked by researchers as FIN7. In 2018, Spanish authorities arrested a suspect in Alicante believed to be a key leader connected to Carbanak and related operations. Other members were later charged in cases tied to intrusions targeting retailers and hospitality companies. Because the group didn't stop with banks, it evolved. After financial institutions improved defenses, the attackers shifted focus. Retail chains, restaurant groups, hospitality companies, payment systems, point-of-sale networks. They adapted. Because the method was never about one specific fault. It was about learning systems. In 2020, a Swiss cybersecurity firm called Prodaf began publishing internal details about the group's tools and communication methods. They claimed the exposure came from an operational security failure. Operational security, often shortened to OPSEC, simply means the precautions criminals take to avoid leaving traces. In other words, the discipline that keeps them invisible. Even patient groups make mistakes. A server left exposed. A reused identity. A small oversight. And suddenly, the watchers are being watched. Carbanak wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It didn't involve disguises or weapons. It relied on something far more subtle. Trust. Banks trusted their internal systems. Employees trusted their email. And the attackers used that trust as their entry point. The modern vault is no longer just steel and concrete. It's software. And software can be studied, understood, replicated. No alarms rang. No guards were hung. No dramatic chase followed. But hundreds of millions disappeared. Possibly more. Not taken by force, but by owing the system. Carbanak was not unique. It was just early. After its exposure, other cybercriminal groups adopted similar tactics. Studying internal banking processes, manipulating SWIFT systems, executing ATM jackpotting operations. The line between hacker and bank robber dissolved. The modern heist no longer requires proximity, only access. and access can be bought, stolen, or socially engineered. The Carbanak case proved that large financial institutions could be infiltrated quietly and drained systematically, without panic, without headlines. Until someone counted the money, arrests were made. International cooperation increased. Banks strengthened endpoint monitoring. Multi-factor authentication expanded. Behavioral anomaly detection systems improved. But the financial losses were real, and most of the stolen money was never fully recovered. Digital money, once laundered through layered accounts and shell companies, becomes smoke. This is the Heist vault. Behind every vault, there's a weakness. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes it's a single click. If you're not subscribed yet, you're missing what's inside the next vault.